So our first reader tonight will be Jill McCorkle. Here is Jill's beautiful new book, Hieroglyphics. Jill is the author of 4 story collections and 7 novels, most recently this one. Her work has been published in many periodicals and included in Best American Short Stories. She is core faculty in the Bennington Writing Seminars and affiliated with the MFA program at NC State University. Jill, thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you. And thanks to everyone tuning in. I am going to read, the novel has 4 point of view characters, and time allowing, I'm going to give a snippet from 3 of the 4. The novel focuses on an elderly couple who have retired in North Carolina after spending their whole marriage in New England. And what husband and wife, Lil and Frank, have in common is that they both in childhood lost a parent to a sort of catastrophic event. His dad in a train accident that really took place in my native North Carolina county in 1943. And her mother went to the Coconut Grove nightclub in Boston in 1942 without saying where she was going. So I think that's all you need to know about Lil, and I'll read a sampling of her first. We all are haunted by something we did or didn't do, and the passing years either add to the weight or diminish it. Mine have diminished, perhaps because I've spent time thinking about it all. It might sound silly, but I see these bits and pieces as my contribution to evolution, the unearthing and dusting of the prints and markers that led me here. Some seem to bulldoze right through life and up to their headstones, but I want to take my time. I want to find the right words. I imagine my recipient to be you two, or perhaps your children. And I hope this is so, rather than some stranger who comes in and hoists old boxes into a dumpster or rakes away the remainders of my life like the sad debris in the aftermath of a flood or fire. I'll never get over the sight of what we left behind at our home of over 50 years to move down here. A mountain of cast-off things, old towels and linens, papers and books and shoes and pots, side tables and lamps, hoses and hose, packets of seeds I meant to plant, and a rubber squeak toy that had been safely hidden away in the back of my closet by one of the dogs long dead. And so much more. Things not needed, things long forgotten, cans of cream of whatever soup and V8 juice, why, and peas that had sat there forgotten for years, and things that never should have been there in the first place, like tuna helper, or those things in my closet like that geometric print mini dress I bought in the 60s, hoping to look like Petula Clark or Judy Carn, a perky pixie kind of dress that I never had the nerve to wear, and instead looked at it there at the back of the closet for years, along with a wiglet and a long frosted fall and some jackets, with shoulders resembling a football player or Victorian monarch. We divided it all into goodwill, consignment, recycle, landfill. But there were also the things I couldn't let go of, letters, reminders, souvenirs, and I'm taking my time, relieved when I find something that might have gotten lost in that mountain of debris, like one of your drawings from first grade or the stub from a movie I'd forgotten I even saw, or a note from my father. When the moving van pulled away that afternoon and we got in the car and turned southward, the space within seemed so empty, vacant. Our suitcases and silver chest in the trunk, an overnight bag and thermos of coffee on the back seat. And I had that terrible feeling that I had forgotten something, because I was thinking of all the times the car was filled with you two, your belongings, your music and voices, the dogs, while going to school or on vacation or just to the grocery store, where I bought all of those things that I then put on the shelf there in our dimly lit pantry on the red gingham contact paper I spent one snowy afternoon 40 years ago cutting and sticking in place. All of those things that I put there and then forgot about. In short, I am homesick and I am time sick. I would be lying not to say that. It's possible to feel content and resolved and still be homesick. I miss all that no longer is, which is why I paste and piece all these scraps together. Sometimes I hold a ticket or photo, a piece of paper, while willing myself back to where I first held it. I know that might sound silly, but it's what I do. I want to hear your young voices, the dog scratching to come in. I want to call my father on the telephone, finger in that rotary dial, one number at a time, TW33642. Let me take this playbill and arrive at the theater, or this receipt and find myself there in the produce aisle of Star Market. Then after the show, after I check out, after I sit and let the car warm up, I drive those familiar streets home and find everything just as I left it, the kitchen door creaking behind me. So that's a little bit of Lil. Now her husband Frank is obsessed with this home in North Carolina where he lived part of his boyhood in the aftermath of the train wreck where his father died. And this young single mother is living in the house with her 6-year-old son. So now you're going to get a little bit of Shelley, and I think she probably, I don't think you need to know anything. She works as a court stenographer. She's running from her entire past. And here's a little Shelley. There are so many things Shelley wishes she could say, things that fight to get on the tongue only to be swallowed back down in the name of composure or decency or respect. As a child, it's why she loved that book, Go Dog Go, and why she has enjoyed reading it to her boys. Do you like my hat? The dogs at the dog party ask, and one repeatedly says, I do not. Instead of that polite girl thing so many were raised to do. Well, it's a hat like I've never seen before, and what a hat it is. Oh my, that's a hat all right. And aren't you sweet to even think to ask my opinion? I'm so flattered and honored you thought of me. Nice girls equal enablers. Now there are whole libraries about this. Do you like my hat? Hell no, it looks like shit. Doesn't she look just like a little doll? Oh God, yes, a little voodoo doll with rusty pins stuck all about the mouth. These cases get to her this way. And the cases around here are not your standard domestic brawl or robbery or occasional crime of passion. There are those too, but that's the easy stuff, all fluff compared to what she's usually taking in. The cases that cost her sleep at night and keep her looking over her shoulder at odd times. There were 3 heads in a freezer right there in a normal avocado green Kenmore, obviously old given the color, but still running, which someone said later was certainly a fine recommendation for a Kenmore. Terrible circumstances, but a fine recommendation. The testimony revealed it to be a 21 cubic foot Kenmore top freezer, even though the accused continued to call it the Kelvinator throughout his trial. My mama's Kelvinator, leaving the whole court to feel like they'd gotten spun around in a time machine and spit out somewhere 80 years ago. The use of freezers has unfortunately been a popular thing, especially for crimes committed in the heat of summer. It seems the involvement of mothers also comes up often. Mama owned the house, mama owned the freezer. It was mama herself there in the chest freezer out in that garage, her legs mixed in with those of deer and rabbits, a 12.8 cubic foot Frigidaire in white. There's very little color choice in chest freezers, it seems, but Shelley did make a notation for herself, something to share with Brent, which she thought would be an interesting topic of conversation if she ever talks to him again, that the use of freezers to hide crimes crossed all class lines. There were just as many Viking and KitchenAid freezers as there were Amana and Kenmore. Murdering and freezing the body was not just a low-class crime, but it is why she had insisted they buy a Bosch refrigerator, much to Brent's impatience and obvious irritation when she said she wanted that one because it was the one brand she had not heard about being used. There's always a first, he'd said. And for a moment she froze, right there in Lowe's, Harvey and Jason still in her vision, sitting on a riding lawnmower. Jason was 12 and she could trust him with his little brother by then, which was a relief. Jason had been a boy she needed to tether to her wrist to wrist with what looked like a long telephone cord so she wouldn't lose him in a crowd. Shelley, Brent jiggled her arm. That's a joke. I knew that, she said, and made herself laugh. I really did. And I will end with a tiny bit from Harvey, the 6-year-old who's obsessed with ghosts and grisly murders and all kinds of things. And he's especially convinced or keeping tabs on what's going on in their yard and what he thinks is going on in their house. This is Harvey. Harvey would be scared at night if he didn't have Peggy. She's fat and warm and she snores, and sometimes her paws move like she's chasing something, like she will chase something if she needs to, and Harvey wakes her up to tell her to do it. But sometimes Harvey is the only one awake, and so he whispers in Peggy's ear to wake up just to make sure she'll do it when he needs her to. Her ear stinks a little in a good way, like how her neck smells under her collar, kind of like the school cafeteria and those big rolls on spaghetti day. His teacher held one up to the principal and said, "Do you think we feed these children enough starch? And does this sauce really count as a vegetable? Really?" Harvey's teacher said, "Really? Really?" when she thought you were lying. "So you already did your homework," she would say. "Really? You really want me to believe that?" And they did want her to believe that because she's the youngest teacher at the school and has a convertible and a boyfriend who makes beer. Somebody asked, did her boyfriend know she always eats lunch with Mr. Stone, the man who teaches 2nd grade and runs the summer camp Harvey's mom is making him go to. The same kid asked, why didn't she dump her boyfriend and go with Mr. Stone? She already has everything anybody wants, a car and a dog, a pit bull mix named Susie. But Mr. Stone can dance and he wears cool shoes. Harvey kisses Peggy and smells inside her big soft ear. He keeps his eyes closed and pulls Peggy tight when he hears the back door open and close. He knew it would. Peggy doesn't wake up and Harvey's mom doesn't wake up. Just Harvey knows someone's in the house and in the hall, and whoever it is stops and stands in the door just like last time. He wants to look but is scared to, because there's some ghosts that'll blind you for looking and cut out your tongue too. So he just breathes real quiet into Peggy's soft ear and waits. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jill. That was great. And I don't know, did you see the news story not long ago where after a man's mother died, he found a dead body in her freezer?
Oh.
That's all I know about the story, but there's
there has been a lot of those around.
Yeah.
Are they all
I can't
Kenmore?
count them. I've seen several through the years.
It's a great ad for Kenmore.
Okay. Okay, all right. Next up, we have Dan O'Brien reading with Alex Draper. So I will read both of their bios. I do not yet have Dan's new book to hold up, but I'm excited that the small publisher out of the University of Cincinnati, Acre Books, is publishing it. And that will be his 4th poetry collection, Our Cancers. He also has a collection of his essays on playwriting, A Story That Happens, coming out in 2021. Dan is also a playwright and a recent Guggenheim Fellow in Drama, and he lives in Los Angeles. And Alex Draper is an associate professor and current chair of theater at Middlebury College. He is also a founding member and the associate artistic director of PTP NYC, the professional theater company affiliated with Middlebury, appearing in 22 productions since the inaugural season in 1987. His off-Broadway productions include Terrorism at the New Group Play Company, Get What You Need at the Atlantic Theater Company, Rose's Dilemma at Manhattan Theater Club, and many others. Alex received a BA in Theater and English from Middlebury and an MFA from the Yale School of Drama. Okay, thank you so much for being with us, Dan and Alex.
Thank you. Thanks for that intro, Leah, and thank you, Jill, for I was saying I wanted to go first because we're going to hemorrhage viewers now from this point on. But I guess we got to go alphabetical because that's fair and this is America. But it's beautiful reading the book. The novel is heartbreaking, and I feel so lucky I've been able to hear it in pieces over the years and now been able to read it, and I hope everybody reads it. I'm going to read about 20 minutes from this play of mine that was just published last year, but was written a fairly long time ago. It's an attempt at a memoir play that instead of dramatizing things in the past, it dramatizes my interviews with estranged relatives. So in the play, it's a two-actor play. I play Dan O'Brien for the play, and Alex Draper has the unenviable task of playing every one of my relatives that I spoke to while I was researching and composing the play. Those that were willing to speak to me. There's a chance that maybe there's some angry relatives on this Zoom event right now, furiously, composing their comments. So that could be an exciting Q&A section. And I just want to say thanks, again to Leah and Adam and Gwen and to Jill and Alex for being here, and to all of my old friends from Sewanee who are here. I see a lot of faces and pictures and names, and I'm really grateful to see you. So this scene, it's many scenes, really, many shortish scenes. About halfway through the play, things have not been going so great in my research in the play. I've found out some things. The basic question I've been asking my relatives is, why was our family so dysfunctional? Like, what was it? Is there one answer? Is there one secret? And as the play goes on, the Dan O'Brien character develops a delusion of fantasy that maybe the one secret that could explain it all is that my uncle, my father's brother, is actually my father. So hopefully that'll make enough sense. We're gonna jump in with a scene where I'm going to see a private investigator. So this is scene 6, Dead Ends.
So tell me who you're looking for.
Brian O'Brien.
That sounds like an alias.
Well, there's good reason to think he does have a few, because he burned his draft card, I heard, and he used to date Angela Davis, and the Black Panthers wanted him dead, so it was the rumor.
You're sure this guy actually exists?
I hope so.
Where was he last seen?
He made a phone call from Florida in the 90s.
Well, that narrows things down a bit. And how old was he when he disappeared?
25 or so.
So he could very well be dead.
And I hadn't thought of that.
Where'd he grow up?
Scarsdale, New York, where I grew up.
Scarsdale? I'm from Great Neck, Long Island.
Well, that makes sense with the accent.
What accent? I'm just fucking with you, Danny.
I can't pay you anything or not much.
Huh?
Playwriting's kind of like being a social worker. except instead of helping others, you often just help yourself. And even then, that's debatable. I could put you in this play I'm writing.
Like what, like a cameo or something? I always wanted to be in pictures.
It's just a play. It might be a play one day.
So who's this guy to you anyway?
My uncle, though I suspect there's reason to believe he's my father. Does that sound nuts?
No, it's pretty common actually. I assume you've asked people in your family.
I don't have a family.
Like everyone's dead?
To me, they are. Or I am to them. It's a long story.
Another aspect you should consider is how folks like you often just assume that their uncle or their father or whoever's just sitting around waiting to be found, when in reality, this chump is not, and he's not happy to be found at all, like not at all.
Yeah.
So what I'll need from you is your uncle's middle name.
I don't know. I'm still waiting for a call from Adam.
So where does that leave us now?
Oh, I should have explained this. Time out. So when Alex is not playing all of my relatives, he's playing my alter ego. So we have little back and forths as Dan. So this is what we're doing now.
Like right now. Yeah.
How about, I'm still waiting for a call from Adam.
So where does that leave us now?
Awake at night, Googling Brian O'Brien plus different states, different jobs.
Brian O'Brien plus construction worker. Brian O'Brien plus plumber.
Brian O'Brien ceramist. Brian O'Brien minor dramatist. Brian O'Brien homeless suicide.
Brian O'Brien, like a serpent swallowing its own tail.
I send a letter to everybody named Brian O'Brien in Florida and New York, because why not? Then branching out to the other 48, then Ireland, because I've long suspected.
But what happens when you find him and he tells you, I'm not your father? How sad you think so?
Well, he might say that. He might say that and be lying. And if he's a liar or a weirdo, it won't matter, because at least I'll have something worth writing about.
What if he wants money? No, that could bring problems. You know that.
Well, maybe I'd like some new problems.
Careful what you ask for.
Some stories do have endings. Some people get an answer.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, Aunt Gwendolyn?
Who's this, please?
I told her what I'd been up to the last 20 years. We discussed the weather, of course, here in sunny LA. Do you still live in Connecticut?
Oh, yes. Not dead yet. Well, since I'm hearing about you writing a book.
Well, I explained that it's a play. Yeah.
Tell me, why do you want to speak to your parents?
Well, they won't speak to me, in fact. They kept saying I looked like my father's younger brother, Brian O'Brien, because I'd grown a beard and my hair was longer.
Guess they didn't like that beard then.
No, guess not. But there were other things that made no sense, though, which of course got me remembering how they sued you all.
Yeah, well, you know what? Well, that was so long ago and so upsetting that we just don't talk about it at all.
Well, and thank you for not hanging up on me.
I'm happy to help you out here, Danny. All I know is that your mother really loves children.
Huh.
Well, she certainly seemed to.
Well, she seemed to resent us mostly.
Why would she have 6 kids then?
That's my question too.
With you, Danny, she thought you'd become a famous novelist or somebody.
Well, she'd tell me how I'd be a writer when I grew up, but then she'd beg me not to write about our family. But the way she would beg me kind of sounded like she wanted me to write about us anyway.
Well, she had a very peculiar sense of humor, didn't she?
Did she? Does she?
I think so.
What was it like growing up in that mansion, Old Ridge?
And by that you mean how our brother went schizophrenic and our mother became an alcoholic.
Sure. Yeah.
Well.
Was there any other abuse, like?
No, 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 no.
Okay, but
Hold on a second, Danny.
you got it.
That was your Uncle Dickie. He's insisting on shoveling the driveway all by himself.
Oh no.
Remember when he'd take you out fishing on the Sound? Why didn't you write about that? The happy times instead, huh? How old are you?
I'm not sure.
Don't you think it's time you got over all this? You're not getting any younger, you know? I had all 5 of my children before I turned 26.
Maybe I won't have any kids.
Maybe you can't have kids because you're still a child yourself. You ever thought of that?
Yeah.
Now, you should know that your mother got in touch with me a few years ago.
Oh, really?
And we send each other cards at Christmas.
And you just never bring up what happened with the lawsuits?
No, we don't ever talk about all that. Otherwise, it'd be hard to chat, huh? That's your line.
Otherwise, it would be hard to chat, right?
And I've got to say, I don't understand any of this. When your mom and I spoke last time, she seemed so happy.
Happy?
She barely mentioned you at all, Danny. Huh? Did you know it's your mother's birthday in a few days?
Oh, is it?
Why don't you pick up the phone like you picked up the phone to call me, which I know took some courage, and tell her, Mom, hello, I'm writing a tell-all novel about all our deep family secrets, and I'd like to hear your side of things. See what she says.
You know, I've thought about doing that, but I don't think I'd be able to take the abuse.
Well, how do you know that it would be abusive?
When I say abuse, I mean denial. I should have said she does get in touch with me. I can see she visits my website a lot, sometimes several times a day. And she sends emails once in a while with photos of foliage and platitudes about the importance of family, or news about accidents she's had, so call, or about relatives I've never met sick with cancer, so please call, or about the anniversary of 9/11 or the Challenger disaster, so please call home, with nothing to say and about everything that's happened, like how they didn't come to our wedding.
They did come to your wedding, right?
No.
They didn't?
No.
Your mother said they did. She said you got married in New Hampshire.
Right.
And then they drove up there, and that was all like this tasteful outdoor thing. and how your wife's a Hollywood actress and all the TV shows and so on. And you're sure your mother wasn't there?
No, I mean, unless she was hiding up a tree somewhere.
Why would she lie to me?
Why don't you ask her?
But I don't know if I can help you with anything else, Danny.
It's been helpful just to hear you say, I don't know.
Happy writing.
Bye.
Well, you can't really blame her, can you? She doesn't know you.
She doesn't trust me.
Well, should she? She has no idea what you're writing. It's almost unconscionable for you to raise the specter of incest in your mother's family, as compelling as you might find that.
Well, it's pretty common, actually.
You know, you're just going to hurt everybody who's kind enough to speak with you.
Yeah, but nobody's going to care about these people if I don't reveal their faults.
Are you revealing enough of your own faults, though?
Like which faults, Dan?
Well, what about your marriage?
Well, I'm not going to write about...
All I need is for my husband not to say it feels awful to hug me.
I did not say that.
I can picture it, Dan.
The meaning of that, we've discussed this 1,000 times.
I am behaving like a normal person.
Yeah, but you know you're not a normal person, right?
What?
Because you have too much anxiety.
I do?
Yes, you know this.
I was hoping to be helpful tonight, Dan, honestly.
Yeah, but the point is that's too much pressure for you.
I don't feel stressed out about your family.
What's different about tonight then? What's different is that I spoke to somebody I haven't seen in like 2 decades, somebody who sounds alarmingly like my mother, that cold voice, that same spooky denial, and that has got to be unsettling.
To me?
To anybody. And you're freaked. And that's why I said I wanted to go out alone tonight, because I have 2 choices One is I struggle to keep my distance and be your therapist,
I don't want that,
which can come across as condescending.
because it is.
Or instead, I engage and start screaming.
I don't want you to scream like that at me.
Yeah, but you started it.
I went into my room
It's my room too.
to get away from you.
You slammed the door to say fuck you to me.
No, I never said fuck you.
You did. You didn't say it literally, but you said.
And you came into the room screaming.
I did not scream. I am very cognizant of not raising my voice at you.
You spoke
Listen to me.
in this crazy voice.
Shut up.
You were screaming, shut the fuck up. You know, you're the one I found standing at the kitchen, stabbing the cutting board with our most expensive wedding knife.
And I'm sorry about that.
Well, I'm telling you now, we can talk about this tomorrow, but I don't feel like I'm the one with the problem here. I feel like I'm engaging and managing my emotions. Thank you very much.
Do you truly think if you hadn't lost your temper at me first, that I would have gotten mad?
You know what I truly think, Dan? I think that if you feel like somebody is telling you that something's your fault, that any of this could possibly be your fault, that it hurts you deeply.
It doesn't.
And I don't know if it's your parents' fault because they abused you verbally. And I don't know if it's because you have unresolved issues with women because your mother collapsed in your arms when she came home from the hospital after your brother tried to kill himself and said, nobody must know. I don't know if you're digging up all this shit and talking to toxic relatives because you just can't accept what I know is hard to accept, which is that your father is your father and he's an unredeemable person. And your mother's just as bad and they're not ever going to love you. And your uncle is just your uncle. Newsflash. Your uncle is nobody. And when I tell you that I'm angry at you, you act like I'm part of the same fucking family.
Stop crying.
I can't.
I'm sorry.
And a marriage that isn't working.
We know the reason for that, don't we?
Do we?
Don't we?
You know what, babe? Let's put an end to this. Why don't you go see? Wait, are you crying now? Why are you crying?
I'm not.
I'm gonna go to bed.
Love you.
Love you.
That night, I call a psychic in London.
I must confess, I'm contending with a bowel complaint this morning.
Oh no.
No, but let's see how this leads us, shall we? Is father dead, please?
My father?
Yes or no, please?
I'm not sure.
It's just that I've got this gentleman here from father's line.
Caldwell.
Sorry?
That Caldwell's my grandmother's maiden name. I forgot till just now.
And have there been any storms where you are, please?
Well, the rest of the country's had some snow, I think.
Because what I think I'm seeing is a hurricane with a broken palm tree. I don't know what to make of this. Honestly, I don't.
Brenda, are you still there?
Do you know what?
No, what?
This isn't working.
She says my mother's somehow blocking the reading. Secrets my mother's been keeping.
Things should just flow, but instead I keep running into these dead ends.
But should I believe some of what you did say, Brenda?
Yes, please. Believe everything I've said.
I'm right in believing that I've never known who my father is.
Yes.
My true father.
No.
And he lives in Florida. Is that fair to say?
I'm seeing a broken palm tree. That's all I can give you.
That's good.
Mickey.
Who?
Your father's father, the gentleman waiting here so patiently, just whispered Mickey quite distinctly into my ear.
Huh.
Does the name Mickey mean anything to you?
Maybe.
Gotta go. Cheerio.
Cheerio.
It's like even the spirit world won't talk to you anymore.
It's only a dream, a wish.
About Brian. Your secrets follow you underground.
I thought she had a few things of value to share.
Like what?
Dear Adam, you've probably forgotten about me, but I've just remembered some information you might need. My grandmother's maiden name was Caldwell, which also happens to be Brian's middle name.
Hey, Dad, I was wondering what happened to you. Give me half an hour to dig some shit up. Hey, that was easy tracking him down. You sure you've been looking hard for this guy? He lives in Hollywood, Florida.
Like I live in the other Hollywood or nearby.
He's a cancer, if you're curious. High school yearbooks online. Senior portrait.
Long hair, glasses, a wisp of a mustache.
And a quote from a Swiss philosopher aphorist, Henri Amiel: moral indifference is the malady of the cultivated class.
Well, that definitely sounds like him.
I'll send you my bill for my cameo. I can't wait to see this picture.
So I write him. Dear Mr. O'Brien, I'm researching a play on the O'Briens of Scarsdale.
A couple of days pass and Hollywood, Florida visits your site. Clicks through all your accomplishments, your vanities and insecurities.
And then the next night, the same person in Hollywood returns to my website.
Only to the page with your picture this time.
Several times that night, then several more times the next.
And always only look at your picture. He goes every night after that.
The same person in Hollywood goes over and over for weeks now.
As if studying your face for something.
Some proof, evidence.
As if he's not sure what to do next.
Every night he returns.
And every night you brighten like you're falling in love.
And just like that, he's gone.
Yeah, you see? He doesn't care about you.
Why should he?
So remember, you're nobody to him.
I'm nobody, just like he is.
Yeah, he's not your father. It's just some stalker.
I've got a stalker?
A computer glitch somewhere.
A dream, a delusion, our secrets disappear with us.
A computer voice answers when you call.
Hello, this is your nephew. I sent you a letter and I'm hoping you might be willing to talk.
Nobody calls back. Nobody's called for months now.
Why won't he call?
You know, there's a way to make sense of this.
How?
Why don't you listen to what everyone's trying to tell you? It's shameful to gripe, Dan. Move on. Grow up.
My mother visits my website 5, 6, 7 times a day now.
It's easy.
A feeding frenzy.
Don't write anymore.
It's like they're planning something. Maybe they're planning to tell me the truth.
Just stop. Stop writing.
Just tell me the truth. I'm ready.
Don't say anything. When anybody asks you what happened to your family, or tell them a story.
Aren't I, though?
If you can't tell them the truth, close your eyes and go back to sleep.
Dear Brian, I'm writing you another letter because I wasn't being entirely truthful with you before. My earliest memory is you looking down on me, giving me a children's Bible the morning you left our house in Scarsdale. But who knows, maybe I imagined all this, imagined you, because the family myth of you, somebody rebellious and artistically inclined, leaving his family behind, all of this was something I could identify with, if not aspire to.
Thanks for the invite to the dance, Dano.
He emails, all caps, as if shouting across the chasm of 30 years, or like a telegram from a lunatic asylum.
I'm happy to see you made it past the age of 3 and done so splendidly. I'm bummed to hear all this sturm and drang and bullshit with your folks, but it's a recurring theme in this family, eh? Enough said. Chug and Go, my awfully wedded wife, knew who you were from that picture on your website. Your hands are definitely O'Brien hands. These hands, they unclog drains, hammer nails, gut fish. Thank God your mama didn't have that baldness gene because it wouldn't have fit the haunted Irish playwright. Oh, I had to hand it. I have a handle on the O'Brien clan, long time passing. Now, bluntly speaking, my big brother Harold is a dirtbag for letting this happen to you and your family. With certainty, he let this happen. No myth. I am who you always perceived me to be. I march to the beat of my own drum. Time is on my side, and I've got scads of it. So, why don't we rattle a few bones when you come for a visit? With the Irish, it's always a good idea to begin with envy.
End scene. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. And you know, it just flew by because there was just no time to pause rapturous applause or laughs or sobs in the audience. We could just get right through it. No, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you both. That was great. That's the first Zoom acting I've seen. I'm really impressed.
I hope it can only go up from here. It can only get better from here.
That was great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how Gwen is doing in terms of playing with her internet, in terms of playing her usual role as moderator of the Q&A, but one of us will do it. So if you would like to ask a question, you may do that in one of two ways. You can put it in the chat and one of us will read it out loud for our writers, or you can, or for Alex, I'm sure he would answer questions about acting and theater, or you can use the little hand raising tool, raise your hand and then ask the question out loud yourself.
And Leah, I'm happy to do this. Just let me know if my audio starts breaking up.
Okay, I'm gonna leave it in your capable hands. Okay, I have a question that came up at our last reading, actually, which since we've just had acting, I'm gonna put to you guys, which was at our last reading, someone wanted to know if you're a fiction writer, a nonfiction writer, or a poet, and reading out loud is not your thing. What tips might those of you from the world of theater offer those of us who are perhaps less accomplished at taking the stage?
I mean, Jill is a famously phenomenal reader. We've at Sewanee over the years, she's been enlisted in many play readings. So it's not just reading her own work, but just performing in general. So I'm sure she has a lot of tips. Or maybe Alex, who's, taught performance for so many years.
I think it's a lot easier when it's not your work, I think. Now that may be, that's certainly true for me. That's why I'm not a writer. So I don't know if I have much to contribute other than it's kind of a skill that you can practice and get used to it. That really wasn't that insightful, so apologies.
I mean, I had a very short-lived but formative experience as an actor. So to whatever degree I can perform my readings, I'm sure it's because of that or to blame because of that. Sometimes I know when I'm reading my poetry, I maybe it's the difference between acting on stage and acting on film. I feel like I want to pull it back somewhat from when I'm reading a play. Because I don't want to sell it too hard as a poem, or if that makes sense. So I admire writers that are able to walk that line. But I guess I'm always looking for just a genuine connection, from the writer and their material. And I certainly don't want everybody to read the same way, Yeah,
I mean, I do a lot of reading aloud while I'm writing, actually. So sometimes when I hear someone else read my work, it hits different beats than the way I would do it. So it's always interesting to hear it in a different way. But when I realize when I read aloud, I'm trying to read what I, was hearing as I wrote it. And what I have had to learn over the years is to factor in the accent, and that it takes me much longer to read than I think. When people say two minutes a page, and I'm like, no, that doesn't work for my readings. I have to always go back and trim. And if we were really at Sewanee and it was a wine night or something, I would have to trim even more. Dan, that was wonderful, by the way. I mean,
thanks.
It's always great to see you in action. And I'm so intrigued by your inner voices and what you do with two people on a stage. I mean, body of an American as well. I mean,
this is the second play in what I call a trilogy because the third is yet to be produced and maybe never will. But all three plays, I wanted to write something for two performers where they could play many characters. In this play, it seemed to make more sense that Dan he's searching for that answer, and he's searching for that answer through all of these other people. So to have another actor who's kind of a shapeshifter who eventually becomes my uncle, the final scene of the play, I do meet my uncle and get a lot of answers. That seemed to make a lot of sense to me. And now I'm writing plays with bigger casts and not in verse. I spent about 10 years writing plays, mostly because of my OCD, with 10-syllable lines. And that helped me in all kinds of ways. But after 10 years, I was starting to feel kind of constricted. And so now I'm sort of, that's why it's interesting to go back to a play that, I started researching this play 9 years ago.
Wow.
Which, in the writer world maybe isn't that long a time, but it's a different chapter, a different era of my life,
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, Dan, we have a question for you in the chat.
Sure.
Ellie Kimball asks, Dan, have you ever adapted a play into a novel? With all of the changes in theater, is that a possibility?
I never have. Well, that's not fair. That's not true. I've adapted this. Okay, this is called a memoir for the stage. But I have been writing a prose memoir. So I guess about a lot of the same material. But the difference is it's really not about these interviews and about these present tense reconnections with estranged relatives. It really is about trying to tell the story of the first 18 years of my life in a moderately dysfunctional family. And so, yeah, I do like to come at, I think it's part of having an obsessional mind, but I do like to, like the previous play that Jill mentioned is a play about a war reporter. That play turned into a collection of poems, then turned into a libretto for an opera, turned into a second collection of poems, and then back into a second play, all about him. And now I think that's out of my system, but I do like to circle around, obviously, with different genres. And I like to think, it's genre that doesn't quite fit what it's supposed to be as genre is exciting to me for all kinds of reasons. So plays that feel kind of like poems, or poems that feel like plays, that feels authentic to me. So I don't, maybe I lack boundaries, but I like, even though I've written mostly plays and poems, I hope to write all kinds of things. I've never tried a novel, though. That's a long answer. I've never attempted that. Jill, have you ever written a play? Or I think I've asked you about this.
I've dabbled. I've always wanted to, and I've got a couple ideas I've kicked around for. You say 9 years, I've got things I've been kicking around for 20 years.
I was going to say, if you're looking to make big bucks, it's off-Broadway theater. No, that's not true. It's not true at all. But you have such,
poetry.
Yeah, exactly. But what I've always admired about Jill is not just her voice, but the voices of her characters, not just dialogue, but how she gets inside their voices in terms of their characters. And so that's why I asked.
So actually, to follow that up, I was going to ask Jill, she said something about when she reads, she's trying to read in the way that she hears her characters. And I see Mary Flynn just put in the chat that Romulus, Jill always said you should write a play. And, I think one of the things everyone admires about your work are those strong voices of your characters. So I'm just wondering if your composition process is that experience some writers talk about where you hear the characters talking to you, or what you meant by hearing as you write.
Yeah, I think I really am driven a lot by the sound, like the back and forth of the conversation, and when I read it aloud, especially, I can tell when I think there's, the extra words or whatnot that don't belong. Yeah, I mean, for me, the scene, you know, once a scene is up and running, that's the easiest place to be. But you know, there too is the danger of that being the easiest place to be. So this novel, what was much more challenging is there are a lot of extended passages without that kind of scene. I mean, most all of the character Lil is in that memory, more than actual scenes. They're little snippets, and so that made me very nervous. I mean, kind of like Dan, you know, the Zoom reading, the reading without the laughs is a scary thing, you know. And it's why I often try to, when I'm reading, I like to have something with some humor in there, because just a silent room for a whole reading just completely unnerves me.
It's interesting.
It's part of the Zoom. Go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I love that you all stay on screen. It's completely new to me. We do so many of these, and there's just a convention. I was actually going to say, wait, aren't you guys all going to like, because when we do readings, the audience always vanishes, and it's just the two actors. But this is much, so you at least you get information in a way that you don't when you're doing a regular Zoom meeting, where it would just be, I would really just see Dan and my faces, and
that's a good segue to plug. Alex and I are actually going to record next week a Zoom full-length version of this play that people can watch. I think 5 nights next week, and the second week of October.
Great.
So we're already rehearsing it a little bit. So this was good to. But no, I always assume with any sort of Zoom presentation, not that I've done that many, that it's just going to feel like you're bombing, no matter what. And I'm actually kind of used to it now. It feels like, okay, I feel like I'm bombing, but maybe it's not that bad.
Maybe there will be something Zoom laughter, you know, like I Love Lucy, the canned laughter, you know, we just have to press a little button. No.
You're absolutely right. You know, they do it for all these sports events. And they have very specifically created sounds. Some of even they even have songs of teams, and it's all fake. And when goals get scored or whatever, and it's anyway. So yeah, but we're right on their list, I'm sure.
I think someone should say that it's okay to laugh. I muted myself, and I was laughing through both of the readings.
Oh, good.
So, but I thought, oh, that's rude, because then the yellow box goes around you. So it should be part of the etiquette of this that you can unmute yourself so you can.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I love seeing everyone.
Thanks, Mark.